What is up, gangsters? This is one of my favorite types of days here at Rube Goldberg Enterprises because this is one of those days where I get to talk about a project that is done. And this is another one that I'm glad to be done with. It's been a while coming, even though I haven't worked on it consistently for that whole time. This one has been off and on my bench for the past 6 months. And it is the Tamiya 1/12 scale Repsol RC213V MotoGP Honda. And it's been quite an adventure. I don't know if you guys have watched any of the previous episodes, but if you have, you know that there was some paint drama. Specifically, when I finished the last episode, it's been a while, I had run out of fluorescent orange and had to get some more. Matt Bull at Hobby World USA was very kind and sent me some more. But as I discovered as soon as I opened the box, it was the wrong color. Not all Repsol Honda fluorescent orange is created equal. And apparently, Zero only sells the one that's correct for this kit as part of the set. And they don't make that clear in any of their materials. And Matt and I didn't realize that. So it took a while to get the correct bottle of paint, but we finally did, and I was able to carry on. There was still a bit of drama, lots of little, just bits and pieces of things that caused me some trouble. But I think overall the result is okay. Not flawless by any means, but I think that the effect of the total effect, the gestalt, is not too bad. I can certainly live with it, especially given that this was my first one of these 1/12 Tamiya motorcycle kits, and I was doing some things that I had not done before. So I don't feel too bad about it, and like I said before, I am mostly just happy to be done and able to show it to you guys. So let's take a look at it, and you can decide for yourself how you think I did. Here we go. Well, there you have it. That is the result. Now let's take a look at the actual thing, and I'll give you my closing thoughts about the kit and things I learned, and the usual drivel. As far as finishing it out, though, because obviously there's been a lot of progress since I had showed it to you in the previous episode. Most of what I had to do to get it finished up was without any major drama. I went ahead and stripped the original orange off of this gas tank using brake fluid, which I had not done before, but I felt like that in this particular case it was probably the best option, and it worked great. So I'm a convert. I've thought brake fluid was crazy in the past because why would you want anything oily anywhere near something that's going to be painted? But it is an excellent paint stripper. And if you wash the thing thoroughly in soap and warm water afterwards, then you shouldn't have any problems with contamination. I would say do not use .5 though. Use .4 or lower, because .5 is a silicon-based product, and you definitely do not want to take any chances with anything silicon-related around your model, because paint definitely will not stick to it. Anyway, so I stripped that off, reshot that part with the correct color of orange, and got a good match between the front and back parts of the tank. That all went pretty good. I also had to do some touch-ups, and I owe a big thanks to my buddy Carlos Starton for suggesting that I use my Badger Sotar for making some of those touch-ups. For stuff like that, this thing is a power tool. It's the only airbrush, the only double action, traditional double action style airbrush, and by traditional I mean with the top trigger, that I've been able to operate. And part of it is because when Gil Mondragon gave this thing to me, he gave it to me with the taller trigger. And so even with my finger issues, I can operate this thing. And you can dial it down to like 5 psi and just squirt out tiny amounts of paint. I did a lot of the work, all of the touch-up work with this thing using my Optivisor, if that tells you anything. And it works really good for that kind of stuff. So, if you don't already have something like an Iwata Custom Micron, and you're looking for something that'll let you do real fine work, this is an outstanding value. I think that I'm not sure on the exact price, but I know that they're substantially less than $200. You just have to make sure if you have the Iwata hose that you get the adapter for the quick connects. But anyway, that all went pretty well. I mean, it was a lot of work. I had a few touch-ups to do on the fairing. I had a few touch-ups to do on this tailpiece because, as I had mentioned before, I ripped part of the decals off with masking fluid, and when I was cleaning that up, I scratched some of the orange paint down inside of this recess, and the only way to fix that was to spray over it. And even though it's really hard to overspray a fluorescent color and get a match, I was able to do it with the Sotar because I could spray in such a small spot that I didn't have any issues with that. So that all went pretty good, but it took a lot of time to get all that stuff done. Anyway, at the beginning of this past week, I was at the point where I was finally ready to clear coat everything. And I should also say that before I got to the clear coat, I had to also do some touch-ups on the decals. And this is where I ended up doing something else that I have never done before, which was order an extra decal sheet from the manufacturer. And I got to say, Tamiya was awesome about that. I called them up, told them I needed the decal sheets for this thing. They charged me $5 for the decals plus $5 shipping, and I had it like 3 days later. It was awesome and totally painless. And it really was the right thing to do, because not only was I short an HRC decal for this, but I also had some issues with the wing decals here on the sides. There were just a few places where they had to wrap around this bulge in the subframe, and they just didn't come together quite right. And with white underneath, there were just some places where it showed through. And what I ended up doing was kind of making a patchwork quilt of little pieces of the decals from the new sheet to cover over those areas. Like, it was particularly bad in this area right here on this side, and I just cut a long skinny strip out of one of the decals and melted it in there with some Solvaset that I very carefully applied. And after the clear coat went on, you'd never know. No way to tell, even with some close-up photography. So that was good. That was a good move to go ahead and just, bite the bullet, wait the couple of days that it took, and get those decal sheets. Anyway, once I got all of that stuff squared away, then I went with my favorite gloss clear, which is U-POL 2K urethane, which I know I've talked about before. And that went better than expected. I think I may have mentioned before that I did this portion of the fairing down here on the bottom using the GX100, and it came out okay, but just not as good as the U-POL for two reasons. One is that, as my buddy Carlos had also told me, that stuff shrinks back a lot, and it will leave the edges of your decals showing if you don't have like a half a dozen layers on there, and he's found that out himself. And because these, this was down here low and not going to be really visible, I didn't worry too much about that. But I did have a hair that showed up after the first set of layers, and so I ended up, I think, with maybe 6 layers on here, and still had some decal edges showing a little bit. But I polished it up a little bit, felt like it looked good enough for where it was located, and decided that that would be enough of the GX100 for a serious automotive gloss, at least as far as one that's got to go over decals. One thing about the U-POL is that it's just a little bit thicker because it is a high solids clear, and it does a good job of covering decal edges. I mean, if we zoom in here, you can see there are no decal film edges showing anywhere, and that's that's a deal breaker for me if you can't get past that. Now, you can always get past it with polishing, but I was kind of hoping that I might not have to polish this one because, number one, I'm just lazy and I was tired of working on this project and I wanted to be done with it, but also because these parts are small and there's not a lot of good ways to hold on to them, and I knew that polishing was just going to be an ass whipping. So I was hoping, but not really counting on, not having to do the polish, because you pretty much always are going to get some orange peel. But much to my surprise, I was able to lay down 3 layers of U-POL on all these bodywork parts and get basically no orange peel. I mean, if I pull my bench light down here where you can see the reflections a little bit better, I think you'll be able to tell. When you look at the edges of the reflection, you don't see the breakup that you see from the irregular surface that is caused by orange peel. So, you know what? I was kind of like, hey, I'm not going to mess with success. There were a couple of places where I could have justified polishing out some small flaws, but I just decided that overall that it looked good enough that I just wasn't going to mess with it. And there were a couple of goobers that I couldn't do anything about because they were in the paint itself, and I had just elected to stop messing with it and just accept those flaws. And so given that I had some flaws under the clear coat, I didn't feel like one or two small defects in the clear coat were really going to be that out of place. The thing's just not perfect, and that's the way it is. So anyway, I'm really happy though with the way that the way that the clear coat came out. If you're not familiar with U-POL, it's a European 2K urethane. I'm pretty sure that there are American equivalents made by DuPont and PPG and guys like that, but I got my U-POL off of Amazon, and it's a little bit expensive. It's like $50 for both the resin and the hardener, but it comes in a 1-quart can, so that's enough to last you through lots and lots of models. Now, other guys like Gravity, for example, are now producing their own 2K clear. MRP even has announced that they're making one as well. So if you want to try it in a more appropriate volume for models, then those guys make some good options. But on a per ounce basis, you can't beat the price. You might pay, I don't know what the price is for the Gravity or the MRP stuff. I mean, 10 or 20 bucks may not seem too bad, but again, you're getting like 2 or 3 ounces. So anyway, I love U-POL. It works great. I will always, reiterate that anytime you're going to work with a 2K urethane, you have to have really good ventilation, a mask at a minimum, because it is not it's toxic. It's not stuff you want to mess with as far as breathing it goes and getting it all over you. A little bit's not going to kill you, but at any rate, U-POL was successful, and I was happy most of all because it really helped hide some of those flaws that I had in the paint. There were some places where I just could not really resolve the issues that I had on the color separations, where I had some ridges and some places where I had to sand it down, and places where it just wasn't quite perfect. And those are still visible if you really zoom in there, but much, much less than they were before the clear coat. So, it's always good to know if you're in despair over the quality of your paint work, like I was, that a really nice clear coat is going to help you. It's going to buy you a little bit of forgiveness on that score. So anyway, once everything was cleared and cured for a day or two, I felt good going forward with the parts the way they were, and I mounted everything up. And from that point, everything went pretty well. But I don't want to forget, because this is just one of those classic Rube Goldberg stories. I should not give you the impression that it was all drama-free. And also take the opportunity to issue a word of caution. I chose this time around to spray the U-POL with my Iwata HPM2, this little gizmo right here. And it's a good little airbrush for things like that. If you're not familiar with it, it's a single action airbrush. You adjust the needle position by screwing it in and out right here. So you set the needle position, and then all you got to do is push the button, and off you go. And this one's got a 0.4 millimeter needle in it. The HPM1 has a smaller cup and a 0.3 millimeter needle. Anyway, it's really good for things like clear coats, because with a gloss clear, you've got to spray wet, and the best strategy is to just fire hose the stuff on there thick and fast, and get a nice uniform wet layer before you let it rest for 5 or 10 minutes and come back with the next one. And so given that this thing will spray a fairly broad pattern, it was a good choice for that. But this thing has a potentially fatal flaw that I don't ever see anybody talk about. The fact that you have to open the needle up and leave it open allows the thing to leak from the nozzle. This is especially true with really thin paints. Excuse me. if you're using it for something like all clad, excuse me, for metallics, it will leak out the nozzle. Like if you set it back down on your airbrush holder like this, you may look up and find a bunch of dribbling, paint dribbling out the end. Now I knew that, and I was dealing with that because I had it opened up a lot. Like I had it opened up like this much to blow this clear. But at one particular point in the process, I forgot that it had gathered up a dribble of clear on the tip of the nozzle, and forgot to do what I had been doing to take care of that, which was just shoot some material off to one side and, let it kind of just barf those little drops off onto a paper towel and then carry on with my spraying. I forgot to do that when I pointed it at the tail section, and sure enough, it barfed a couple of huge droplets right onto the surface of this thing. And I sprayed it with some straight Mr. Leveling thinner and got it to level out pretty well, but not nearly well enough. I mean, it just looked terrible. And so there was no choice but to sand it down and reshoot the clear on that. And fortunately, because U-POL is so forgiving when you spray it, I was able to get that done without any new drama and got pretty close to the same level of finish that I got on all the other parts without having to do any polishing. And so all's well that ends well, I suppose. But that kind of makes me want to tell you a little story, or just kind of, I don't know, because to me this is kind of representative of what this whole project has been like. This thing is just super dense in terms of the detail and the operations, to get the whole thing built. And this tailpiece is a perfect example of what I mean. So, just to kind of walk you through just this tailpiece, this is how it went. It's 3 pieces, so it had to be assembled, and the seams had to be dressed, and then it had to be primed. Once it was primed, everything looked pretty good, but then it had to be shot with white. Once that was done, I shot the orange. I masked off that just on this edge, and then came back and shot the red. Then I came back and shot the white. Somewhere in all of that, I elected to put some fasteners in to replace the molded in detail for the Zeus fasteners, because I knew that they weren't going to look good. So I had, because that's one of the disadvantages of U-POL, is it's a little bit thick and you will lose some molded in surface detail. So anyway, I had to drill out each of those 4 locations. I'll zoom back in there so you can see that. Those are little bitty tiny rivet or socket head screws like I used on the fender flares of my Porsche that I got from, I think their Top Studio. I got them from Hero Boy, whatever. Anyway, so I had to drill those out. Then it was time to put the decals on, which wasn't too bad. Then it was time to, I think the deal was, if I remember right, I was really stupid, and the reason that I had masking on here after I had this Repsol decal and this decal on was because I was trying to correct something, I think. Anyway, I don't remember exactly, but bottom line was I screwed up the decals, had to fix the decal here, had to reshoot this part of the orange right in here. Then I had to reapply this decal. Then I had to clear coat the whole thing. Then had to re-drill all of these holes because the clear coat, fills them up a little bit. Then install the each of those little fasteners, which had to be cut short because the stems on them were too long and they poked through on the inside and would have interfered with this piece. And also, you can't see the bottom of it, but the bottom of it is painted black, just like the splash guard here. So that had to be masked off and painted black. There's 3 decals underneath there. Those had to be applied. And the inside of the thing had to be painted silver. So there you can see the underside of it there, like that. So I don't know how many steps that is just for this one little tail section part, but man, what a little wrestling match that was. I mean, it's like basically everything that you would have to do on this entire model is present in just this little 1 cubic inch volume of space right here. And it was tough. And then when I went to put it back on, it's a pretty tight fit. They want you to be able to just snap it onto the rear of this section right here. And it did not fit exactly. I mean, it was a tight fit, so getting it back on there was not just as painless as I had hoped it would be. It also, for whatever reason, did not clear the pipe. So, you can see I've got that whole curlicue of exhaust pipe inside there. And I ended up having to use my Proxxon and remove some material from the inside of this part to get it to slip over the exhaust. So, yeah, that was just kind of representative of the way that this whole project went. And I thought it would be fun to tell you guys that story. Anyway, that pretty much got me through all of the rest of it. The last little bits I had to do after I installed the tailpiece were to install the foot controls. And one thing that I'm pretty stoked about, that I'm glad I went ahead and spent the effort to do, was to install a cable for the sensor that goes on the shift linkage that you can see hopefully there. I just used a little bit of lead wire for that, and I made the little wire ties for it. You can see a little bit better there. I made the little wire ties for it by using one of my favorite things, which is Aizu 0.4 millimeter washi masking tape. The stuff is fantastic for masking, but it's also fantastic for making little wire ties and hose clamps like that, because all I do is stick some on my cutting board, paint it black with a black Sharpie, and then cut it to length, put a little tiny drop of super glue on the side that won't be seen, and tack the thing in place, and then use my tweezers to just wrap it around there, and it'll pull the lead wire in just like a regular hose clamp would, or a wire tie or whatever. And it gives you a really clean look, much cleaner than trying to paint those kind of little details. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that turned out. I elected not to do as nearly as much detailing on this thing as I could have. Just stuff that I thought was relatively easy and would show up well. Now, one little piece of detailing that I did that I kind of regret is this thing is covered with Zeus fasteners in real life, and they're about 1 inch in diameter, and they look just like a giant, slotted screw head. And I had gotten these little 1.5 millimeter diameter screw heads from USA Gundam store that I thought looked really cool. And I thought, well, those will make good substitutes for the Zeus fasteners, and they'll look a lot better than the little decals, which you can see right there on the side of the front fender. And in retrospect, maybe not the best decision, because they do look pretty sweet. I mean, they're real metal, they're perfectly round, they've got some depth, but they're just a little too deep. You can see from a side view that they stick up a little bit too much. They're just a little bit overscale in height. The diameter's good, but the height is just a little too much, and they just don't look right. I think what I would do if I were going to do this again, I'm not, at least not anytime soon, is I would drill the 1mm hole for the stem of the little fastener, and then countersink it just a little bit using a 1.6mm drill, so that it would actually recess down into the surface of the fairing there. And I think that would look really good. But I did not figure all of this out until I was, drilling through, opening up the pilot holes that I had drilled before paint, after I already had clear coat on there. And at that point, I was just happy to just get, my holes drilled successfully without scratching the clear coat or doing anything stupid. I used the little bitty 0.8mm head fasteners like I used on my Porsche for the bolts that hold the windshield in. And so I decided to just use those same ones for the 4 fasteners around the tail section, even though those really should be the bigger Zeus fasteners. So I just felt like having 4 of those giant things like that back there would look really stupid. So anyway, that was pretty much it. I elected not to put the camera on the tailpiece because it just, frankly, just didn't feel like it. Didn't think it added that much. And also because I had managed to lose the electronic scoring module that goes right here on top of the fender. So, those things aren't on there between races anyway, so no big deal. One thing that I did that I felt like turned out pretty well was my finish on the seat. All I did to paint those initially was spray them with Mr. Surfacer 1500, just like some of these other black parts. But that's a closed cell foam on the real thing, and so not only is it just dead flat, but it also has a little bit of a grayish appearance to it. So I came along with some Winsor Newton transparent white and did a layer of that over it. Use a nice big soft brush to kind of dapple it and give it that sort of splotchy look. And then I came in with some AK Ultra Matte clear varnish, which is their acrylic clear, and it's really good. I mean, as you can see, that stuff is flatty flat Flatterson. I mean, that stuff is sucking out so much light that it practically makes the room darker, and really good for things like tires and seat cushions and clothing on figures and stuff like that. So good product. And I'm pleased with the way that ended up looking. I kind of think, that one of the keys to bringing realism to a model like this is capturing those different levels of sheen. I mean, getting all the different colors is half of it, but there's a lot of different materials going on here. You've got the foam on the seat, you've got gloss painted carbon fiber, you've got plastic, you've got aluminum that's been machined, cast aluminum like on the frame sections, just a lot of different things going on. And getting different levels of shine to each of those areas, I think, is a really important layer in creating a realistic finish. So I really tried hard to do that, and I really feel like that part of the thing came out pretty well. And I can't think of anything really else that is worth talking about. I think I've been rambling far enough, so let's call it a project. Okay, so there you go. That is what it is. I am glad I took on this project. I really appreciate Jim Starkweather with Kitmaker Network for sending it to me. and given me the opportunity to crank out another one for his very cool website. But I am glad to be done. In retrospect, this was probably not a great choice for my first 1/12 Tamiya motorcycle project. And that kind of brings me to just some quick wrap-up thoughts about the kit itself. I would recommend this probably for an intermediate to advanced model maker. Not so much because of the kit and the construction, because aside from the silly screws, which I'm just never going to really, agree with Tamiya about, the engineering on this thing is really just phenomenal. I mean, there were places where it literally fell together in ways that surprised even me. And, the way that they get all the body work to fit, just really everything about it is a super impressive bit of model kit engineering, and it's just proof of why we love Tamiya so much. I mean, they just get it done. So from that aspect, I would say it's a good project for basically, just about any skill level of model maker, maybe save just a pure beginner. But the reason that I say it's a little bit more of an advanced project is because of the decals and the paint. This thing's got a lot of decals. I mean, there's nearly 100 decals. So if you're not fond of doing decals, this is not your project. If you're not totally confident in your ability to do masking and painting on small parts with really unforgiving color separations, I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot more unforgiving than red, white, and orange, then also this is not your project. But if you want to do one of these Tamiya motorcycles, I would strongly encourage you to check one out. They have, what I call civilian motorcycles, like the new Kawasaki that they've just come out with, the Ducati Panigale, and those give you all of the fun of the construction of these super cool kits. But, single color paint schemes, not a lot of decals, no masking to speak of. So I think those would be a good way to go for somebody looking to get into this particular genre. And at like 35 or 40 bucks for the kit, plus I think like maybe 20 more for the detail up parts. If you want to do that, super good value. So, overall, I think a really fantastic kit, and I would definitely recommend it, with those caveats. So, anyway, that's that. That's a wrap. And if you guys have followed along with this one, I really appreciate that, as always. Totally appreciate you guys putting up with all my nonsense. So, as always, much love. Take care of yourself out there.